Hi, everyone. It is time for Morning Kombat Extra Credit. This is the podcast within the podcast. This is where we get to the things that we normally don't get to on regular MK. I am your host for today. My name is Luke Thomas. As I mentioned, regular MK, that's me and Brian Campbell. We get to the stuff that's high level, the stuff that we can pack into a singular show, but this is the stuff that we didn't necessarily get to that I still think has some value. Now, today we're going to talk about two different cards. We're going to talk about Bellator 285. We're going to talk about Rizin 38. Actually, Rizin 38 / Super Rizin, which was where the Floyd Mayweather part came into play. But either way, you get the idea. Thumbs up on the video. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, do give us a nice review. All right, so what we're going to talk about is, normally we go through 5 fights. I'm really not going to do that here. I'm going to hit the high notes of Rizin 38 in a minute. And we really talked mostly about what I want to talk about at Bellator 285. But there was that one submission, that one moment that was insane. In fact, it was on the very first fight of the card. I'd like to actually walk you through how it happened because it was extremely unique. In fact, I've never seen it before. So let's get into that now. Okay, Bellator 285 took place at the 3 Arena in Dublin, Ireland. Of course, it was headlined by Benson Henderson taking on Peter Queally. Don't want to talk about that for this particular exercise. The opening bout on the card was a welterweight contest between two gentlemen. If I'm mispronouncing the first guy's name, or really either of their names, please forgive me. I believe it was Luka Paklit taking on Dante Shiro. And Paklit wins with one of the most incredible submissions I've ever seen. People are calling it an inverted arm triangle. I want to walk you through exactly how he did it because it's really unique and highly interesting. Let's go to the part where that's the most relevant. So here we have, it ended in the second round, right around this moment here. And what you see is, I'm going to scoot my microphone over. You have Shiro in mount and you have Paklit underneath. And I want you to pay attention here. Paklit has his hands clasped together like this. And not only does he have his hands clasped together, what's kind of interesting here and noteworthy is that he's got, if you notice here very quickly, he's got not just an arm around the, he doesn't just have a collar tie, he's got a deep collar tie. You see he's got the crook of the elbow basically behind the neck. And that puts a lot of strain on the low back, keeps the pressure close, or the, I should say the distance close. But here's what you got to pay attention to, right? So Paklit is going to want to get out from underneath this space. And what he does here is, before this moment, right, you see Shiro trying to use this arm to break the space away, and he can't quite do it. So what he does is, you're actually going to see him pull his hand out a little bit, right? Let's watch. So what happens here is, what is Paklit looking for? He's got his hands together. He wants to go for he wants to roll over. But he doesn't really have this outside foot trapped like in the way that he needs to. He needs to have this foot kind of trapped, and he doesn't. So he bucks and he rolls here, right? But as long as Shiro has this elbow posted, it's really not going to go anywhere. You can't do a whole lot with it. You can keep his posture close, and that's nice, but you can't really roll him as a consequence. So let's see what happens here. He tries to roll. It doesn't really work. It doesn't really work because, again, this, as long as that's there, there's really nothing you're going to be able to do about it, okay? So we go through here. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. He's straining. And by the way, he's putting a lot of pressure on the back and the neck here of Dante Shiro. So that's good. I mean, that's something. Shiro tries to punch a few times. You see Paklit try and kind of catch it for a moment. That's just, we're keeping busy here a little bit, right? Scoots it on the inside, keeps the inside space. Paklit, by the way, never lets go of the one over the neck, which is an important detail here, right? But this is the part you got to worry about. Paklit's like, okay, I got to get the grip off of me. So he reaches his left hand to try and peel that off of his neck, and it doesn't quite work. And in fact, that's all Paklit was really looking for. So then he uses his own hand to grab. Now the posting hand is no longer there, right? So there's nothing really holding him there. And I'm going to see if he steps over. He's kind of on. Ideally, you would want to block this foot as well. You don't have to necessarily, but you really want to make that a part of it if you could. So now when he rolls, it's a little bit different. And he's going to use this leg almost like a butterfly hook to kind of finish the turn and go through here. And he still can't quite get it. He's rolling, right? What happens here, though? Paklit still keeps control of that head. Let me go back a little bit. Paklit keeps control of the head. But through the process, he's lifting, can't quite get it. He's trying to find the space. He's trying to elevate him a little bit here underneath. Can't quite get it. Shiro bases out, right? He's a V now, because now he's putting both feet on the ground. That gives space for Paklit to turn inside there, which is exactly what he does. Now he bases out. Now, I don't know exactly what happens here. I don't know if Shiro elected to sag off to the side or if Paklit intentionally sagged his weight this way to bait him at that part. Again, I've never seen this. I don't know exactly how it's done. But in any case, he sags off to the side like this, right? So remember, Paklit still has his head wrapped, but this is where it gets kind of interesting, right? So now, let's pay attention here very closely. So now he's off to the side. There's Paklit kind of captured it. You still can't get a great angle on it, but I'm going to show you here just a little bit, right? Okay, now you're getting a better sense of things, okay? So Paklit is got his hand wrapped here. Excuse me, I want you to pay attention. Look closely. He's got his own hand kind of even gripping his own cup, but the inside of his thigh at a bare minimum to keep control there, which is a nice little detail. We're going to keep going here. Finally, let's see. So now Shiro fully bases out, and let's see what Paklit does. Paklit now bases himself out while keeping that arm, right? Let's watch a little bit further. Now Paklit comes to a full-on base. Let's check this out here. So now you can see it. He's got the inside arm. This is the arm of Shiro. He's got the head wrapped here. So he's got the head and the arm wrapped, and he's using his own grip on his own inside thigh / cup to keep it. And this is the other detail. He steps his hand out to the outside here of Shiro. Why? He's going to drive into it to take him off of his base. Presumably, if he's on his base, he's going to be just more mobile, right? He's going to be able to move around a little bit more. And granted, this is a tight, tough position, but if they're just sitting down versus standing up or whatever, they're just going to be a lot less mobile. Their weight's going to be sagging down. Right here, his weight is up. If you're getting guillotined, what's one of the first things you want to do? You want to tripod up, for example. So now he's going to drive into it almost like a John Smith low single, right? He's going to drive into it just like that. He's going to take Shiro, off of his base, and he's going to sag him over to the side. Now, with a John Smith low single, you would actually go this way, but doesn't matter. You get the idea. Takes him off of his base and now dumps him. So now he's dumped. He still has the grip. He's still gripping the inside of his thigh. So Shiro, I think, tries to pull back almost like he's trying to get someone to roll through with a omoplata attempt that failed or something like that to get them to roll all the way through. But it doesn't work because he's able to keep control of the head, Paklit. He gets to come to his base back down. You can see his own arm here. You can see his own arm here wrapping around the neck, right? And you can see he's got, let's see, let me back up a little step here. Let's go through it here. So now he's on, he's on live toes, right? Which means he's going to be able to get better balance and drive weight if he needs to. Paklit is still, Shiro is still sagging down. Let's go through here just a little bit. This is that weird position that everyone saw before. We go through. It's on, but it's not quite fully on. And what you're going to see is now that foot begins to slide because now I think the choke is beginning to really do its work. And what Paklit is going to do is he's going to bring his base underneath him. He's going to pop his head out as that leg comes out. Watch. There he is. Right? See where he pops up now? That's going to give room to pull that leg out. And from there, he can pop his head. And once the head pops, then he can drive. At that point, it was already over anyway. Let's take another quick look at it from a different angle if we can. Just want to show you exactly how he finished this off because it was the capturing of the arm in the process through the overhook over the head from mount that did all the work. Again, pretty inventive, pretty creative. They call it the Lucanator. I guess that's what John Kavanaugh, who's his trainer, calls it. Luka Paklit is the guy here who apparently is the one who invented it. Again, I've never seen that before. It looks just like a mount escape. You can see here one more time. He punches, uses this, right? Once Shiro tries to grab the hand right there. One more time. He uses that. Now he's trapped it. He can no longer base out. He's going to push and turn. He's going to lift almost with like a butterfly hook. He's going to wait till he bases out, turns underneath, sags him off to the side, rotates around, right, to keep his head down. And I want you to pay attention to that arm. That is the one that has captured everything, and he's using it as a clamp that keeps Shiro tied up, right? So he wants to make sure he can get Shiro off of his base, and you'll see him eventually pull that off later. And then once we get here, you can see that same glove tied all the way through there. He's going to pull that head out, and then that's basically all she wrote. He comes apart after that. Boom. Boy, pretty clever. I'm sure that there are more details. That's a very basic overview of how he did it. Nevertheless, MMA's capacity for surprise and weirdness, it never ends. That is extremely creative. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that as a mount escape for everyone. That seems like it's going to be a little bit harder to pull off once you know what you're up against. I would say in Shiro's defense, probably an element of surprise that got to him there. Nevertheless, sneaky, crafty, tricky, effective. I think that's like 8 wins in a row now for Paklit. That was nice. Very, very nifty. I would love to know some of the finer details about keeping the arm wrapped and exactly how you do it through the course of the entire turn. But you get the idea there. That is extremely effective, extremely nice work. Well done, Luka Paklit. All right, and now that takes us to the Rizin portion of the card. Some interesting bouts on this one. Now, this was really 2 different cards, sort of. There's the Super Rizin card. That's where Floyd Mayweather had his exhibition bout. But then there was the Rizin 38 portion of the card. Let's start with that one because that was the legitimate side of things. I mean, there were some legitimate fights on the other ones, but this was the most legitimate for the MMA portion. Anyway, Kyoji Horiguchi defeating Yuto Hakamura via arm triangle choke, 2:59 of round 2. They called him Kintaro on the broadcast. I believe it's a nickname he goes by. He has a fuller nickname than that, but in any case, Hakamura. Interesting bout. Dude, Hakamura looked a lot bigger than Horoguchi. And Horoguchi, as we saw on Have You Seen This Shit from regular MK, early in the bout, Horiguchi gets dropped a little bit, but it didn't seem to bother him too much. He recovered pretty quickly. There was no subsequent damage that really was a part of it. And in fact, in the end of the first round, you saw a right hand land from Horiguchi, which he kind of like transitioned to right into a knee tap, which he got. He was able to advance position pretty quickly from there on. And he was able to land a little bit before that as well. But Kintaro was kind of stalking a little bit in this contest. This seemed like a bout Horoguchi was supposed to win, if he in fact did win it in the second round. He was able to get the arm triangle from a mount, and by the way, he got it off of like, also in the bout there was like this head kick that Horiguchi got under and then got the takedown. But the whole idea was in that second round when he was locking up the arm triangle, it didn't look like he was going to get it. It looked like he was a little bit not quite where he needed to be, but he kept squeezing and then Kintaro basically just gave up, and I think either went out fully or was close to going out, and that was all she wrote. So a nice win for Horoguchi, getting tested a little bit, especially against a much bigger guy, but he looked good. You know, what does this mean for any kind of return to Bellator, or what it might mean, you know, for his future in the bantamweight division against more elite talent? Hard to say exactly. This was like a tune-up fight. I mean, you don't see, honestly, a lot of tune-up fights in MMA. You got one here, but good news was, while he got rocked, he didn't get rocked too badly. Was able to recover, getting a takedown, and then that right hand into the knee tap, and then eventually getting a submission in round number 2. Altogether, a superior fighter putting on a superior showcase. So that was pretty nice. By the way, he showed some good ring craft too, not getting trapped along the rope lines when Kintaro was trying to get him there. So a nice win by him. Also on the card, though, there was the Rizin Super Atomweight Grand Prix semifinals. And what's kind of interesting about this is they have a super atomweight division, which I think is like 108 pounds. Regular atomweight's 105. Someone who knows Rizin a little bit better than me is going to tell you why they have a super atomweight division versus somebody else. And in this contest, you had Soo Woo Park from South Korea taking on Ayaka Hamasaki, who is a legend in the game, but she's 40 years old, and I think she's lost like 3 of her last 4, something like that, including these two, or including this one, and then previously someone else I'm going to talk about. Never really got the fight to a place where she does her best work, and so she loses via unanimous decision. Not a whole lot to say about that one. The one that's more interesting to me would be, if I mispronounce her name, please forgive me, Saika Izawa taking on a Ukrainian by the name of Anastasia Svet Kivska. A little bit hard to say, but the one you want to pay attention to is Saika Izawa. She looks to be like she has a real potential future in this one. She is the current Jules strawweight champ. She's the Rizin super atomweight champ already. She is undefeated. Now, granted, I think she only has, let me double check this here. Yeah, she only has 8 fights, so she doesn't have a lot of them, but she has 2 wins over Ayaka Hamasaki. She already beat Suwoo Park, who just beat Hamasaki. So she's obviously doing great things in this sport already, and she got on top in the first round, but it was actually, I would say, her opponent who did much better work from underneath, so they go to round 2. And then it was, she locks up a reverse triangle, which doesn't work, and she was able to get on top again. And then she tried another triangle a little bit, or she even tried a scissors choke, which didn't work. Then she tried another triangle, and that didn't work, but right before the bell, so this came at 4:56 of round 2, she then used kind of like a failed triangle to then unlock the triangle, swing the other arm around in front, and then get the submission there. Nice work, man. Super, super nice work. Took her time. One of the hallmarks of someone who's good at jiu-jitsu is how well they can wrestle with their legs, or, you know, control posture, control distance, manage it, both pushing and pulling into themselves, what kind of dexterity they have with their legs. That's a really important skill. Some people are good at jiu-jitsu but don't really have that. She does. She has it in spades. She looked to be excellent in this contest. Now, how far she can go and what the future is of atomweight or super atomweight, one never knows. I believe she's only 24 years of age. So one wonders, if she gets a little bit older, you're already at super atomweight, not atomweight. Does that mean you're going to go now to 115? Because if you go to 115, well, then you can go to the UFC. You can fight for North American audiences. That is very much getting ahead of ourselves. I don't know what her long-term future is, or what Rizin wants to do with her, or if she ends up in Bellator, if they start a division for that weight class. God only knows. But someone to keep your eye on. To me, you know, Horoguchi is obviously very senior and very impressive, but for the rest of that card, she was the one that captured my attention. Saika Izawa. Again, I'm sure I'm saying it like a complete jerk, but I'm doing my best. All right. And then, of course, there was the Super Rizin portion of the card where Floyd Mayweather took on Mikuru Asakura. I mean, I don't even know what to say about this stuff anymore. Like, there's an audience for this. I don't know how much the Japanese love it or not. I cannot speak for them. Obviously, they keep booking Floyd, so there must be some kind of appetite for it. Floyd still looks a little bit like Floyd. He's not doing, you know, he's not fighting a completely different style. And, of course, there are some folks being like, well, Asakura could have gotten up from being knocked down in the second round, and he kind of barely got to his feet, and then the fight was waved off. You know, I don't know what the answer is there or what the story is there. Floyd did take some big punches in the first round that, as we mentioned at MK, I said I hadn't seen him taking a beating, not a beating, but like big shots like that since the Mosley fight. BC pointing out, I think quite correctly, Maidana got him a little bit too. Fair enough. But the point being is, like, against other senior fighters, like against Pacquiao, Canelo, Berto, you didn't see him get hit like this, like, ever. And, you know, obviously he's fighting. You can tell he's, like, taking it easy. He's quite relaxed. I saw some footage of the backstage area when he was getting his hands wrapped, and his trainer, who goes by the name of Jizzy Mack, which has got to be the worst name ever, he got stopped. You know, this guy barely knows what he's doing. And, you know, I don't think there's any, like, real debate about that. He's just out there doing whatever he's doing. But Floyd didn't really seem to care. He kind of watched and was like, you know, do better next time or whatever. So, you know, Floyd was kind of keeping his hands down. He was still moving a little bit. He still got some speed. He was beginning to tag. You could see he was going to the body, and then he would go upstairs, and he was tagging Asakura as he was exiting off at angles, and then eventually he dropped him with a shot. I think it was a right hand, and he couldn't quite get up afterwards. So Floyd's still doing Floyd things. Listen, and for folks who like that kind of thing, you're getting plenty of it. I don't particularly care for it. It doesn't do anything for me, but here he is still getting booked. I think he's got a fight coming up against some other Twitch streamer or YouTuber or whoever he is. If that's your thing, great. If not, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, listen, this is a Showtime product. Obviously, you guys know Jake Paul is going to have a big fight on Showtime coming up. I'll say this, man. You know, most of these other guys, in Jake Paul's defense, and again, if you don't want to buy the fight, don't buy it. If you hate Jake Paul, hate Jake Paul. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But I do think one thing that does separate him at least a little bit is most of those guys he came up with, the other YouTubers, you know, they're still or whoever they are, social media stars, they're still kind of all fighting each other. Jake is at least trying to elevate himself. Now, we'll see if that ends up in disaster against someone like Anderson Silva. Again, inside the boxing world, I have mentioned this a number of times. There's a lot of folks who just don't seem to be aware of how difficult that challenge is. They think that Jake's going to run over him, and of course, he's 47 years old, Anderson Silva. Who the hell knows, right? But I tend to think that there's a little bit of indifference or, frankly, ignorance of the depth of the problem that he's up against. But the point I'm trying to make is there's an audience for this kind of thing. If it's you, great. If it's not, that's fine too. It seems to keep happening. How much longer, I don't know. But at least in the case of Jake, and again, Floyd's career as a boxer is as decorated as they come. But in the case of Jake, I do feel like, to me, it's one thing when, like, you know, here you did have ostensibly two pro fighters, but, you know, one guy competing very much out of his comfort zone. I feel like, you know, whenever it's like two social media stars or fighter versus somebody completely out of their depth, or I should say YouTube star versus someone completely out of their depth by virtue of age or injury or whatever, it's not all that interesting. To me, it's a little more interesting when there's actually, this should be no surprise, of course, a little bit more competitive. This was just, you know, Floyd making a paycheck. God bless him for it, but you get the idea. That is it. That is it for this episode. Quick, short, not too bad. There wasn't a whole lot that happened over the weekend, but still enough to go through here. All right? So what did I miss? What did I get wrong? What'd you hate? What'd you like? Email me, lukethomasnews@gmail.com. Let's see. A lot going on this week. We have Invicta this week. We have 2-1 cards this week, so that's 3, plus Bellator, plus UFC. So we have 5 different cards this week. 6 if you want to count Contender Series. Busy week in combat sports, and we've got you covered in totality on Morning Combat. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, enjoy the fights.